elections, including from a Microsoft Threat Analysis Center report and also the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Now, on the Microsoft document, it actually details how Iranian hackers are working closely with Russian and Chinese Communist Party groups on these cyber operations. It also details several hacker groups involved in this operation, notably 4 out of the 6 that it identifies as running these things are in fact backed by Iran, at least according to Microsoft. And it's this part that really details the cyber breaches, because remember we talked about influence operations. This is the actual cyber part. These are some of the keynotes in the Microsoft document. Again, August 9th. One of the groups it identifies is Lemon Sandstorm Fox Kitten. And look, bear with me, they tend to make these kind of weird names to identify different hacker groups. They're kind of like military terminology they use just as designators, right? Unit designators. So they call this one Lemon Sandstorm Fox Kitten, which can identify both the specific breach and the pseudonym they've given to the group running it. Then on this one, on it, they say, Iranian threat actor known for ransomware, hack and leak operations, meaning you take over someone's computer, you lock them out, and then you hold it ransom. And so you don't let somebody get access to the computer unless they pay a bribe or something like that. And then they also hack it and then leak it, meaning they breach you and then leak something online, probably to destroy your reputation. They say this group reportedly gained access to a local U.S. election results website back in 2020. And the attack was reportedly thwarted by U.S. Cyber Command. But officials predicted that the group may have sought to tamper with the displayed results to undermine trust in the election outcome. Another group they say they designated as Mint Sandstorm Charming Kitten. It says ahead of the 2020 U.S. presidential elections, they unsuccessfully attempted to log into accounts of Trump administration officials and Donald J. Trump for president campaign staff. So this group, notably based on known attempted breaches, actually was trying to gain access to accounts of the Trump campaign, Trump himself, and also administration officials. Now, another group they say they designated as Peach Sandstorm APT-33. APT means Advanced Persistent Threat. And typically those are, big state-run hacker groups. They've designated this one APT-33, meaning that this is just the 33rd one they're tracking. And note this one targeted U.S. state government agencies in late September of 2022, possibly to gain access ahead of close U.S. Senate elections. While that attempt appeared unsuccessful, it suggests that Peach Sandstorm may be positioned to support election-related influence operations. So this one, again, was actually trying to breach, it seems, some of the election systems. Now, also, remember this. Back in July of this year, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a statement saying that various foreign actors had specifically targeted presidential campaigns in order to influence the upcoming elections. Now, on Russia, it said this: these actors are seeking to back a presidential candidate in addition to influencing congressional electoral outcomes, undermine public confidence in the electoral process, and exacerbate socio-political divisions. Meaning, they want to, again, maybe try to back the campaigns of certain public officials they may think are more in favor of what they want to accomplish in the world. A lot of that would probably be around maybe the Russian proposed side for the peace deal in Ukraine. They want to get what they want out of it, and they want U.S. officials who would back what they want, or at least open the door for it. They also, it says, want to undermine public confidence in the election process. Maybe make Americans no longer believe their vote counts, or something like that. And they also want to exacerbate socio-political divisions. Notably, this is important because for a lot of other countries hostile to the United States, they don't necessarily view Republicans or Democrats. They view both of these as being just part of the American system. And for them, if they can drive a wedge within American society and maybe sharpen the divisions, make people more at odds with each other, that for them is causing divisions within America, not just within our normal political states. And so by exacerbating socio-political divisions, they're turning Americans against each other, suggesting they might actually back both sides and then try to manipulate it to cause both sides to fight more. The Director of National Intelligence also says the Chinese Communist Party probably does not plan to influence the outcome of the elections. Again, Xi Jinping himself actually said publicly he was not going to do it this time. Take that for what it is, because they might not be telling the truth, frankly. But it says, however, quote, the intelligence community is also aware that PRC, People's Republic of China, influence actors are using social media to sow division in the United States and portray democracies as chaotic. And so influence actors, again, fake YouTubers, fake social media accounts, fake influencers, or even as journalists they can control, they're using these individuals to try to sow the image that democracy itself, that free societies are chaotic. And so they want to paint America as being unstable. You know, one of the big narratives the CCP uses to justify its totalitarian rule is it says that, you know, basically we can't have peace unless you have totalitarianism. Or, you know, you can't have peace without a, you know, absolute dictatorship of a communist party. And so they try to portray free societies as being chaotic as a way of justifying their own type of rule. Now, on Iran, it says this: the IC, intelligence community, has observed Tehran, Iran, working to influence the presidential election, probably because Iranian leaders want to avoid an outcome they perceive would increase tensions with the United States. Now, look, this could be a test for the Democrats on their stance on foreign meddling in an election. Because, look, if you're a political campaign and someone just suddenly hands you all the information you could ever dream of to launch political attacks or frame narratives based on internal conversations, memos, documents, and even research that your opposition has done on itself, noting all their vulnerabilities, all their policies that might be problematic, all the possible attacks that might be launched against them. I mean, that's a roadmap to, you know, really strong propaganda or really strong, you know, election campaigns to, you know, note the vulnerabilities of your adversary. The temptation will be very high on that, and frankly, I think a lot of people would probably use it. But for Democrats, of course, this is going to be complicated because, again, since they're the incumbent party, Joe Biden is president, they, of course, have to look at this both as a type of, you know, foreign meddling in the election, and also, again, is stolen documents being used to alter the outcome of the election. And given the fact that, you know, there were some of the bigger voices for years talking about foreign meddling and election interference and so on, this could be kind of a test for them on whether they choose to use that information and how they kind of balance that. Not to mention the fact that, you know, actually they've taken a pretty strong stance against China, Russia, and Iran right now. And so allowing these countries to actually successfully launch information campaigns would be damaging to their overall goals of, you know, trying to oppose these groups and the effect they're trying to have within the United States. On the other side, if news outlets publish information from the leaked documents, it will look like Iran and possibly Russia and maybe the CCP as well are being permitted to interfere in our elections. And that's going to be complicated because in America, you know, for the most part, we have freedom of the press. There are some limits to it depending on, you know, foreign interference and foreign agents, things like that. But for the most part, if a news outlet gets information, they're free to publish it. And so for the news outlets that have received this, some of it's probably going to be on their own discretion of whether they actually publish it and whether they actually use it. We'll see how far they go with it. Again, many of these same news outlets that may be receiving it were also some of the louder voices talking about the threats of, you know, foreign meddling in our elections. And if you're dealing with something that could undermine the integrity of the elections from a known foreign actor, then of course it's going to be controversial if you publish anything on it. But look, there's also a key difference right now between the analysis of the breach this time and the analysis of the breach back in the 2016 elections, because remember, that was pinned on Russia. The 2016 case, notably, they had digital forensics done by a private security company. And, you know, when the FBI tried investigating the foreign breach of the elections, they were not actually given access to the actual machines. They had to go by the word of the company that had been hired to investigate it. And so with the whole, you know, Russian breach of the elections back in 2016, there was never really a proper investigation, at least not at the time. The current breach was warned about by Microsoft, right? And so it's another company doing it technically, but there are also stronger government resources in place to prevent foreign interference in our elections in ways like this. Of course, the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, they have now also made their assessment that there was at least attempted breaches, and there are campaigns being designed to influence our elections from the same threat actors they're identifying: Russia, Iran, and China. So look, right now we're going to have to wait and see what analysis is done on the government side to actually prove whether or not this was Iran. Because remember, the Trump campaign right now is saying Iran hacked their systems, Iran leaked it. It's not totally proven just yet. We have circumstantial evidence, at least on the surface. Maybe it's possible they were told things behind the scenes if, again, the Director of National Intelligence was tracking these groups, or other government organizations were tracking these groups, or maybe Microsoft had information. We only know for now what is shown publicly. Publicly, what we see is evidence of attempts to breach the networks, intent to breach the networks, groups trying to do it and failing, and then a breach taking place, and then a leak taking place. And so the connecting dots between those is not 100% filled in yet. We'll probably get more answers as it goes forward. As of this moment, it does look like it's pretty plausible that someone did, in fact, steal the documents and leak them. The big question now is whether it was a foreign government that did it. But look, it's also possible news outlets could use information in the breach as fodder for stories without actually having to cite the alleged stolen documents. And this could actually go both ways, right? It could be that a news outlet, okay, they're not going to quote this document, but they might use the analysis of the vulnerabilities of J.D. Vance, for example, the dossier that was leaked, as notes for further investigation, and then use that as the basis of maybe future pieces they might want to do that could impact the outcome of the election. Now, again, that could go both ways. Again, on one side, news outlets and political groups, they can use it for opposition research, and they don't necessarily have to cite, according to this leaked document. They can just use it for leads, in other words. They don't have to necessarily cite the document. They do articles based on the direction that it would guide them towards. But look, on the other side, this also creates a lot of complications as well, because the Trump team, they can write off any kind of reporting or internal information being made public as being tied to this cyber breach now. And so now they have a plausible form of deniability. Hey, you got that from stolen documents. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We don't know now. Hey, that opposition research sounds a whole lot like what we warned about in this dossier that was leaked to you by suspected foreign, hackers who are trying to influence our elections, and therefore, by publishing this opposition research, you're working with this foreign threat actor, right? Remember back in 2016, that was the big narrative against Trump. He's a Russian agent, right? Because, again, Russia was accused of the breach, and anytime he did something related to information that might have come out from that breach, he was called a Russian agent. The narrative could be flipped now, using that same narrative. Now, the problem is, if you're a political organization, you're probably doing opposition research regardless during a major election. And if you're a journalist, you're probably doing some research as well. And so they're probably researching some of these avenues in general. It's not necessarily tied to the breach. But now what happens is on both sides, they have a roadmap of where to look, and they also have a way of denying any kind of allegation, accusing them maybe of using foreign research or even colluding with a foreign government with the intent of altering the outcome of our elections. So, in terms of sowing chaos, in other words, this actually goes a long way to do it, frankly. Well, everyone, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us, and as always, please take care of yourself, stay informed, and stay free.